Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today I bring you myself. So this is going to be a solo episode. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I have something on my mind that I've been wanting to share for a long time. And it's something that I've touched on briefly through many episodes before, but I haven't really done a deep dive on this. And I think it's really important that I do so because this is something that's really resonated with people and it's really stuck with a lot of people. And so I want to start out by sharing a story with you. When I graduated college back in 1999, I spent most of the next year traveling, just sowing my oats. I mean, I had a couple of jobs offered to me right out of college. They were pretty good assistant wrestling coaching jobs. Actually, one was at the Naval Academy, which was one of the higher paying second assistant coaching jobs in the country at the time. And it just would have been a great way to launch into my wrestling career, my coaching career after a transition from college wrestling. But I turned all those down because I knew that I wanted to travel. I'm an adventuresome person. I love adventure. I've done a lot of I have my own rock climbing equipment, whitewater kayaking gear. I've run a lot of big whitewater, climbed some big stuff, and hunting, fishing, scuba diving, hiked active volcanoes. I mean, all kinds. Jumped out of perfectly good airplanes, bungee jumped, skydived, or went hang gliding over Rio. My wife and I, Allie and I, actually both did that on our honeymoon. So done a lot of fun stuff like that, and I had a lot of that in me, and I just wanted to go on a grand adventure after college. And so I spent a lot of time on the internet, just kind of looking up different jobs that would allow me to do that. And I never quite found something. So what I did is after I graduated, I went home, moved in with mom and dad for a few months, and I painted houses for myself, just found some customers, painted some houses, made some pretty good money, and saved it all up. And I bought a one-way plane ticket to Texas and took a bus down to the border, crossed the border, and I had 3 months. I had an open-ended, back then you could buy open-ended plane tickets. I had an open-ended plane ticket and crossed the border into Mexico, and I had about 3 months and nowhere to go, nowhere to be in particular. I was eventually going to make my way down to Guatemala, Panajachel, Guatemala on Lago Atitlan, and where a friend of mine was, a former soccer player at UVA who was a friend of mine in college. He was down there working at a meditation center. That's another whole story. We'll get into that sometime, maybe over a drink sometime if I ever get to sit down with you. So some crazy adventure this was. So I crossed the border, went all down through Mexico, took several weeks, just kind of aimlessly wandered around from town to town, basically took buses from town to town and went on some awesome adventures, met some amazing people, got lost, got found again, made my way down to Guatemala, did some scuba diving in a collapsed volcanic cauldron lake, hiked active volcanoes, continued on to Honduras, got bribed, had to do some bribes at the border just to get my passport back, and made my way out to La Ceiba, the town of La Ceiba on the Caribbean coast. Went out there, did a bunch more scuba diving out there, did a night dive, met some more amazing people, made my way back through. And when I was coming back through Guatemala, I met a girl who had an amazing job back in the States leading adventure camping tours. So I wrote this phone number down for this company because I'm like, man, this is the job that I'd been looking for. Right out of college, this is the job that I'd been searching the internet for and never found it. So got the phone number for this company, wrote it in my journal, tucked it away, ended up back home, came home back to Pittsburgh, after 3 months of just grand adventure. And again, I can tell you about that sometime if we get to meet face to face. And came home for Christmas, went to Europe for a month, came home from that and started teaching and coaching. And after just a couple of months, I said, man, I'm not done. I've got the itch. So I looked up that phone number that I'd gotten from the girl in Guatemala. She was an American girl, and looked up the phone number, called the company, and long story short, I got a job as an adventure camping tour leader with a company called Trek America. And it's an amazing company. It was an amazing job where basically I was assigned a 15-passenger van. I had 2 propane tanks, cooking camping stoves, 2 coolers, 7 or 8, I think 8 tents, 8 two-person tents, a couple of just the gear that we needed. And basically what you do is you just get assigned a group of tourists. People from all over the world sign up for these trips, and they pick sort of a pre-planned itinerary that could be anywhere from 7 days to 9 weeks was the longest one. The longest tour that I led was a 5-week tour. We went from Los Angeles to New York City by way of the South, the southern route across the United States. So amazing job, amazing trip. I mean, I never had an American on any of my trips. It was all foreigners from, you might have a couple from South Africa and a dude by himself from Germany and a girl by herself from Poland and 3 friends from Japan, and everybody just kind of piles into a van and off you go on this grand adventure, right? And it was my first real job out of college, and you had a lot of responsibility. I mean, a lot of responsibility. Sure, it was fun, but I had the lives of all these folks in my hands, usually about a dozen or so. Their lives are in your hands, and they're the vacation that they've saved up. This is like the vacation of a lifetime. So you have to keep track of all the receipts. You have to do all of the trip planning. You have to do sort of all the, for lack of a better word, coaching on how to not die when you go for a hike in the Grand Canyon because you didn't take enough water. And so you run this entire operation. You have to call in advance and make all of your reservations at the campgrounds. A couple times you stay in hotels when you go to the big cities like Vegas and New Orleans and Chicago or New York, cities like that. You're staying in a hotel, so you have to make pre-plan all your preparations and all your reservations, all your travel, meal planning, just on and on and on. The logistics were just incomprehensible in terms of one person running this entire trip. And this was before GPS, so you had to, there were GPSs existed back then, but they weren't sort of regular and not something that everybody had. So I had a cell phone, but it was just they didn't even have flip phones back then. It was just a regular small phone. And that was it, so you're out there on your own. So you had to plan everything. Every aspect of this trip had to be planned. And to learn how to do this, we literally had a 4-week training program, and it was very intense. It was a lot of fun, but it was intense because you had to learn how to run these trips and how to not screw it up and how to not, kill people and make sure they had an awesome experience, not just, got them through the trip, but made sure they had an awesome experience. And I mean, gosh, as a tour leader, you got to do all these cool things. For example, you go to the Grand Canyon, and if your passengers took did the airplane tour, the helicopter tour of the Grand Canyon, then I would get paid a commission. That basically the tour leaders would get like $10 a head. Plus, if there was an extra spot on the helicopter or the airplane, you get to go on the tour for free too. It's awesome. I got to do bungee jumping for free, rafted the Colorado River, mountain biked in Moab and Telluride. I mean, if you're a mountain biker, these are like mountain biking, havens. So got to do all these great things, but the best thing that came out of that job is when I look back, which most lessons you really don't really learn until you get some perspective on them, is this: before you went on a trip, you spent about a half a day planning. So you'd sit down with your manager, you would plan out the whole itinerary. It was sort of loosely already planned, but you have to go through day by day where you have to get to. This day you have to travel this many miles, and then you're going to stay there for 2 nights, and you're going to do this hike and this adventure and that adventure. And you had to plan this out, and then you had to do a lot of planning on your own, a lot of logistics, a lot of, all the hotels, all the meal planning, all the campgrounds and whatnot that you had to stay at, all the outfitters, hey, I'm coming to the Grand Canyon. I'll be there on Wednesday. We're going to have a group of 12. I think maybe 6 or 7 of them might want to do the airplane tour, so reserve a spot. So you had to do all this planning. It was very, very deep. And for somebody just out of college for a first job, which, there's just a lot of, we felt like we were pretty much just bums, we were out there having the time of our lives, but it was a heavy job in terms of responsibility. But the most important part of that trip was the planning. The most important part of that trip was the half day that you spent planning. And it's important to understand that, right? So hold that thought in your mind. And now you fast forward, I've done over 100 interviews of my podcast on success through failure. And if you've ever listened to some of those back episodes, man, you go way back. It was wrestling with greatness, then wrestling with success, and now success through failure. So thank you if you've been through some of those iterations. And if you haven't, go ahead and back and listen to some of those old episodes. I probably sound terrible. But I've asked so many of my guests, what's the one habit that you do that sets you apart? What's the one habit that you do that has made you most successful? And as you know, you've heard them talk about this. It's prayer. It's journaling. It's meditation. It's working with a coach. It's planning my week. It's writing down, organizing my to-do list. It's these moments of pause. And if you listen to my episodes for any length of time, you've heard me talk about the productive pause. And the productive pause is this. I've defined it as a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. Clarity of action and peace of mind. How good does that sound, right? We all want clarity of action and peace of mind. Whether it's in our health, you want to lose 30 pounds, like clarity of action, peace of mind. What am I doing? What do I have to do? What's next? And then the peace of mind that comes from having that clarity, and the peace of mind that comes from knowing you've taken those steps on any given day. So clarity of action, peace of mind. And that's what this productive pause is. So this is the single most common habit of high performers. This is what makes success happen. This is what made me have successful trips when I was working for Trek America as a tour leader. And by the way, Allie, my wife, was a fellow tour leader. We started the same day. I remember the moment she stepped into the van. We were on our first day on our first training trip. I remember watching her climb into the van thinking, man, she's cute. I want to meet her. And she sat right in front of me, and she charmed everybody in the group, and somehow I charmed her just enough to get her to marry me. But anyway, that's how Allie and I met. But to have a good trip, you had to do the planning, right? So for anybody that's heard me talk about the productive pause, you're saying, okay, I know the productive pause. I've heard you talk about it, Jim. Tell me more. What do I need to know? How do I make this real in my life? Well, I'm going to give you this formula, okay? I'm going to give you a number in terms of how much time you need to spend doing a productive pause. And that is a minimum of 5% of your life should be spent in productive pause time. 5% of your life. And so think about this. Here's my morning routine. And one of the things I work with a lot, my clients, my coaching clients who take Reveal Your Path, or whether we do one-on-one coaching or whatnot, we talk a lot about morning routines and just habits and really daily routines, whether it's in the morning or any other time of day. And that is what helps people really reach peak performance, really get the most out of their day, out of their time, out of their relationships, out of their life, is these moments of pause, these routines, right? And so I think about, I actually wrote down my morning routine and just kind of doing some math through my morning routines and planning. And 5% is the right number, a minimum of 5% of your time. up to 10% of your time during certain periods. And here, let me explain. My morning routine is this. I wake up, I drink about 6 ounces of milk just to get some protein into me right away, about 16 ounces of water to get the water flowing through me, get fluids flowing through me, and then I'll do 10 minutes of meditation. And if you listen to my episode back with Nell Daly, 10 or 15 episodes ago or so, she called me out for not meditating. And so, yeah, I didn't meditate up to that point, really. And so I gave it a real shot, and I'm actually loving it. So if anybody wants to talk about meditation and kind of how I've made the transition to meditating, just shoot me a message on Twitter or Facebook, or even shoot me an email, Jim at jimharshawjr.com. But I'm now meditating 10 minutes a day. Then I do my 5-minute journal. And then I usually do some kind of productive pause later in the morning around either praying or listening to the Bible or some kind of affirmations, just personal affirmations. And actually, Jared Kamar, who is a guest on my podcast, he's going to be coming on soon. He's one of my clients. He's done Reveal Your Path a couple of times now, and now he's in Reveal Your Path Pro with me. But Jared actually recommended this. What he did is he took a bunch of images, kind of like a vision board. Took a bunch of images, put them into, just pop it off the Google, off the internet, put them into an iMovie on his phone, added music to it, and these basically represent his core values and the four areas of goals where we work on setting goals: relationships, self, health, and wealth. Those four areas of goals are the important areas for your life. So that's another. So I've created a video like that for my own life. That's another part of my productive pause in the morning. I aim. This doesn't always happen, especially right now. Allie's in grad school, so this doesn't always happen. She's taking some full-time grad school classes and doing an internship right now. But I try to spend 10 minutes a day with Allie. That's like the best days are when we spend about 10 minutes just talking. How was your day? How's your week going? What's coming up for you next week? Here's where I'm going to be next week. Here's what I have on my calendar. What do we got on the kids' calendars? How are we doing financially? Things like that. And then spending about 10 minutes to plan my day. So if you add all of those up, 10-minute meditation, 10 minutes of prayer or Bible or affirmations, 10 minutes with Allie, 10 minutes planning my day, and then 5-minute journal, that's 45 minutes. That's about 5% of a 16-hour day. So if you get 8 hours of sleep, you're awake for 16 hours, 48 minutes is 5%. And so that's an important number to realize. So think about how much time you actually spend planning your day, because if you're willing to set aside that 5% of your life, the other 95% is going to be so much more fulfilling. You're going to be working on the right things. You're going to be working on the right things. You're going to be getting the right things done. You're going to find time for the things that you need to find time for. You're not going to be drifting through your life. You're not going to be spending time on Facebook or Twitter when you should be, watching your kid's soccer game. I mean, you're going to be spending your time doing the right things and living the way you want to live your life. So 5%. So 5% of a 16-hour day, 48 minutes. 5% of an 8-hour workday. 5% of an 8-hour workday is 24 minutes. 5% of a 1-hour meeting. Say you have a meeting coming up. You have a 1-hour meeting. 5% of that is 3 minutes. So 3 minutes. So think about that. If you go into a meeting and everybody hates meetings. Everybody talks about they hate meetings. Well, why do they hate meetings? I don't hate meetings. I like meetings if they're useful, right? Nobody hates a useful meeting. They're good. It's about communication. It's about opening lines of communication, making sure everybody's on the same page if the meeting is run right. So what I try to do before I go into any meeting is I spend just a minute or so, a couple minutes at most, thinking about what I want to get out of that meeting, right? So I can be driving down the road. Sometimes it's, 3 minutes is 5%. If I spend 3 minutes, I'm getting so much out of that meeting. I'm walking away. Instead of an hour meeting, it's probably going to be 45 minutes. And I'm going to walk away. Instead of walking away going, man, I forgot to ask this, or I forgot to figure out what we're going to do for that. Or, I'm I'm walking away going, yeah, I got everything I need out of that meeting. I know exactly what I need to do, and everybody else knows exactly what they need to do. That is a productive pause. That's the value of a productive pause. And, I'm actually going to share another thing with Jared Kamar. He's given me some pretty good stuff here over the years, just kind of having worked with him. But I learned a lot from my clients as well. And he texted this to me the other day. He said, E2 plus P2 equals S2. I said, what is that? It's just a formula. E2 plus P2 equals S2. I said, what does that mean? So E2 is environment of excellence. Environment of excellence. And that's a core part of Reveal Your Path. That's a core part of the program. And I'll talk about environment of excellence here in a second. Plus E2 plus, so so environment of excellence, plus P2, P, productive pause, equals S2. I was like, what is S2? That means doubled success. Doubled success. So E2 plus P2 equals S2. So if you want to be successful, you've got to pause. You've got to hit the pause button on your life. You can't just keep doing and doing and doing without stopping. Yes, you have to take action. Yeah, sorry to say this. Yes, you have to think and you have to plan, but you've got to take action after that, but you want to be taking the right actions. And those right actions are only determined if you're willing to stop and evaluate. I look back at my wrestling career, and the most valuable time that I spent that entire year, if you could really break it down to 1 hour of time, it's the time when I had my preseason meeting with my head coach, Lenny Bernstein, and we talked about my goals. We talked about our goals for the season. And when we did that, it gives you what? It gives you clarity of action and peace of mind. Clarity of action and peace of mind. And so you might be saying, okay, well, what do I ask myself, right? What is this productive pause? Where do I start? Okay. Tony Robbins said, the quality of your life is dependent upon the quality of the questions you ask, right? So first of all, you have to start asking yourself questions. So when you wake up in the morning, it could be, what are the most important things I have to get done today? Or it could be, how do I live in accordance with what's most important to me today? So that might mean spending more time with your kids. That might mean, making coffee for your wife in the morning. I do that every morning, by the way, for Allie. I get her coffee already. She loves it. All she has to do is press the button and it goes. So I make coffee for my wife every single morning. And, but it's asking yourself, how do I live most in alignment with my goals? Here's another one. If you're really struggling to figure out what's next, or you're lacking focus, or you feel like you're just distracted at work, you can't lock in, ask yourself, what's the one thing that I'm not doing that if I were would most move me towards my goals? What's the one thing that I'm not doing that if I were would most move me towards my goals? Think about that. That's how I spend my time driving. When I'm driving down the road, if I'm not on the phone, I'm listening. I'm either listening to an audiobook or a podcast. But I tell you, most of the time, I drive in silence and I ask myself these hard questions. And whenever I come up with an answer, I ask myself the next logical question. I question myself. And I really get hyper clear on what my next action is. Usually after like an hour drive, I drive to Richmond a lot, which is about an hour from Charlottesville. Usually after about that hour drive, I have such clarity on what I need to do next, whether it's at home, at work, or elsewhere. I have clarity of action and I have peace of mind because I'm willing to turn off the entertainment radio, which is fun, but I'm willing to turn it off and actually ask myself the questions. Here's the other thing. So many of the guys that I work with have said, men and women, because I've worked with mostly men, but I certainly have some women that I've coached as well. They have said that they incorporate this productive pause into their life regularly. I mean, they've really grabbed onto this concept of a productive pause, and they do it regularly. And they're asking themselves these questions. Speaking of women that I've coached, Irina Allison, she's the CEO of a real estate firm in just outside of Chicago. She actually shared this with our mastermind group. She said she would always ask her daughters, and this is something that she came up with during the program, because you kind of get this clarity of mind whenever you're going to reveal your path. And one of the things that she came up with is she's going to ask her daughters every morning, what is going to make today awesome? What is going to make today awesome? And she asks her kids that, right? And what are her kids forced to do? They're forced to find positive things about today, right? Think about the mindset shift that happens when you do that. And the other thing that the productive pause brings is mindfulness. It's presence of mind, right? This whole mindfulness movement that's going on right now. People think mindfulness, they immediately go to meditation. It's not just meditation. It's a productive pause. That is mindfulness. It's not just meditation. It's meditation. It's journaling. It's working with the coach. It's prayer. It's setting goals. It's finding a mentor and spending time with the mentor. It's these moments that are mindfulness. And when you're mindful, you're grateful. When you're mindful, you can actually pause and be grateful for what you have. I had Justin Wren on the podcast here not long ago. And man, if you haven't listened to that podcast, holy cow, that one will just blow your mind. For me, it's just doing the interview, it was incredible. So that was episode number 109, Justin Wren. But anyway, Justin Wren, he is a UFC fighter, very, very successful. Man, was he as raw and vulnerable as anybody's ever been on the show. And man, it's just a powerful, powerful message. But one of the things he does is he volunteers, and his sort of charitable life mission now is to help the Mbuti pygmies in the Congo. And one of the things he does is helps them get fresh water. And if you ever go to their website, it's water4, WATER, I think the number 4.org, I think it is. If you just search for water4, you'll find it. But you go there and they show images and pictures and videos of these new wells that they build in the Congo. And these kids are overflowing with joy and gratitude and happy. Like think about an American kid who gets like the coolest toy for Christmas and is just jumping and doing backflips and freaking out over how excited he is or she is for getting this awesome gift. That's what these kids feel like in the Congo for water, for water, fresh water, the same thing that you and I take for granted. I mean, we walk to the sink and turn it on, we flush our toilets and we have water, more water than we could ever imagine that we even need. We don't take any joy in just turning on the faucet. But if you hit the pause button and you actually think about what you're grateful for, guess what? Be grateful for fresh water. Be grateful for water. Be grateful for having a car. Be grateful for having a job. Be grateful for having a family. Be grateful for the health that you have now. Gosh, I'm grateful. I have so many friends who have died. So many friends. I've so many teammates. I had 3 of my wrestling teammates died within about a year after I graduated. Some during this time when I was talking about my travels earlier. I'm grateful to be alive. They're not even here to experience life anymore. So the productive pause encompasses gratitude. You want to be happier? Practice gratitude. Practice the productive pause. And this is the single most powerful thing that you can do. And so I talked about 5%, right? So minimum 5% of your time has to be in a productive pause. Now, I say minimum because, when I kind of talk about my morning routine and my daily routine there, that's about 5%. But each month, I review my goals. It doesn't take long, 5 or 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. And then annually, I spend hours working on my goals. Sometimes I work with a coach. When I'm working with my coach, then that's a longer productive pause. So all of this stuff is above and beyond 5%. So 5 to 10% is well within the normal range. Now, if you're going through a specific program like a Reveal Your Path, and I know I keep talking about that, but I'm just using that as an example. I'm not trying to sell anything right now. When you're going through Reveal Your Path, it is there's a lot more time spent in that productive pause because you're doing sort of intensive, deep work. And when you're doing that deep work, that 5% is going to go up to 10 or even 15%. It's going to increase significantly when you're doing some deep, focused work and planning work. So I encourage you to start using the productive pause. If you want to get access to a dozen productive pause questions that you can use to guide your day, just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Again, jimharshawjr.com/action. I will have a dozen of the best productive pause questions that you can possibly ask yourself on a regular basis that will give you clarity of action and peace of mind. Clarity of action and peace of mind. I hope this helps. I hope you can start using the productive pause in your life. And until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.